Hello guys, Crispy here, welcome back to another video. In this one, my friends, I'm gonna be testing a GeForce GTX 1650 4GB GDDR5 in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. This one is the Gigabyte Mini ITX OC version of the card. I am running it with the latest Nvidia drivers and I'm not manually overclocking it. You can see all of its specs here in Tech Power-Ups GPU-Z, and over on the left I am pairing it with the i5-12600K and 32GB of RAM. Let's get into it, shall we? Going over the settings first, I am starting at 1080p resolution, utilizing native res, of course, and the low settings preset, and I am pleased to say that at least right now, it seems to be running pretty well with 40-ish frames per second. There's a ton of pop-in, though, at low settings, but hey, it's low settings after all, so they're supposed to look bad and perform the best that they can, and the 1650 seems to be doing a fine job. Now, there is a little bit of an issue here. I'm seeing some bigger spikes than usual on that frame time graph. That could be because of the VRAM being a bottleneck here. I believe this game does utilize more than 4 gigabytes at the 1080p low settings, unfortunately. So from time to time, especially if you come across a new town, for example, it will probably stutter a little bit and have some inconsistent frame times there. But most of the time, as you can see here, we're just running around with the horse and it's getting 40 FPS. Frame times are actually smooth. It's not too bad. Honestly, this is not utilizing the low performance mode or anything like that, or ultra low graphics mode. That's it, that I tested with the GTX or GT 1030, not GTX, that's not a GTX card, you know. So yeah, this is all low settings from the game, default, standards, you know, without any mods for the graphics themselves. Now, it's a bit unfortunate that it does have a ton of pop-in. You can see things just rendering in front of you right there, like the grass and stuff, but again, it's a GTX 1650. I am actually pleasantly surprised with the performance that we're seeing here, given how most recent titles play or don't even play. Indiana Jones, it crashes on startup on the GTX 1650. This is nice. It's playable performance. If you can deal with a couple of stutters here and there, it's going to be all right, and it's decent, right? Oh, whoa. All right, yeah, we see like some bigger spikes here approaching this area. But I mean, this is not stuttering more than UE5 titles usually do in high-end systems. And this is the GTX 1650 with just 4 gigabytes of VRAM. It's playing it. It's fine. Also, I'm in the process of getting a GTX 1650 DDR6, by the way, or GDDR6. So yeah, expect that coming to the channel sometime in the future, in the next month, maybe. I'm saying this because a lot of you guys have been asking for the GDDR6 version, which is slightly faster than the GDDR5, usually around 10% or so. Sometimes more, sometimes less. But yeah, there is a bit of a difference, and I will be getting it finally after all of these years. So yeah, we're seeing a lot of vegetation here. Okay, let's go this way then, Pebbles. Okay. 40 still. It's not slowing down, surprisingly, even inside of here with a lot of vegetation. This is nice, and it still looks good, see? Like, if you have a lot of vegetation around you... Sorry, Pebbles, sorry. Let's go. Up the river we go. So yeah, it's playable. It doesn't drop from 30 FPS, not even from like 35, I think. 34 FPS, 1% lows are probably coming from the stutters that we've seen so far. Yeah, those could be better, obviously, if the game maybe was a little bit better optimized for 4 gigabyte GPUs on lowest settings. But I'm not complaining at all. Even though this is running out of VRAM, it's not making it completely unplayable like some other titles once again. So this is super, super good. CryEngine to the rescue once again, and the good optimization from Warhorse Studios. They've done a great job with Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. I think this game is more stable at the very least. It might not run better than the first one, but it is more stable. It basically stutters less and it has less FPS fluctuations. Also inside of towns and stuff like that, big cities, for example, that's more CPU intensive, it's not as GPU intensive, so if you don't have a CPU bottleneck, expect higher FPS inside of those bigger cities. Over here, lots of dense vegetation. It's not dropping. It's fine, guys. This is so surprising. I was expecting it to perform a lot slower than this. And again, yes, this is low settings, tons of pop-in, tons of issues with the picture quality, actually. But I could still play like this and have fun. I can't really get mad at this performance, honestly. It's a GTX 1650 after all. I didn't even think it would be capable of running this at 720p even. Speaking of 720p, by the way, we're down to it. It looks really bad, actually. The on-screen display is super weird. Like, what the heck is going on with that? But we can still see the FPS and stuff, and it's getting 80s. Way better, way smoother experience, of course, but this is to the point where resolution would impact my experience with the game a lot. I'm using a 27-inch 1080p monitor for this. It's not amazing, you know, PPI-wise, but it's still acceptable at 1080p for sure. And this is just kind of unacceptable unless you're running like a Steam Deck display, a 7-inch display, for example. It would look nice at 720p resolution, but on a bigger monitor, I would avoid this. I would definitely stick to the 40, 50 FPS experience, maybe 30 FPS experience actually, sometimes at 1080p native resolution, then go down to 720p to achieve 60 plus FPS all of the time. It's possible to have it, as you can see, 63 right there with dense forest areas. So the 60 FPS is possible, or 60 plus FPS is possible. It actually did drop down a little bit there, but you need to drop down... You need to drop down the resolution by a lot. All right? Okay, there we go. There's the last wolf right there. Come over here, boy. Come over here. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, boy. I guess now he's going to be mad at me and he's going to kill me, probably. Is he running away from me, actually? No, he's running after the wolf. Why am I helping this guy? He's probably just a wolf killer. He's harassing the wolves. You know what? Do not kill the wolves. I don't like that. I don't like what you made me do either. You bastard. It's probably Bob, by the way. Looks like Bob, for sure. All right, where's Pebbles? Pebbles? I need you, buddy. Pebbles? Ah, there he is. Okay, let's go. So, but what are you doing, Pebbles? What happened? There's also the middle way option, I guess, 1600 by 900 resolution or 900p. Let me just grab this, make it a little bit bigger. Yeah, this is it, still on the low settings. And this is definitely not as bad as 720p resolution was in terms of graphical fidelity, but it's not getting 60 plus FPS. Even here in this empty area, you know, we're not even inside of a big forest area, it's already in the 50s. Going inside of a big forest area, it drops us down into the 40s. And it's a lot more shimmery as well than it was at 1080p native resolution, with what, like 5, maybe 7 FPS higher than 1080p resolution. So I wouldn't do this at 900p. I think it's a decent middle ground usually, and if you do have a 900p monitor, sure, of course, go for your native resolution. It will look good. On like an 18-inch 900p, for example. I had one of those in the past, actually. I liked it a lot for budget builds and stuff. But yeah, 1080p is definitely the way to go with the GTX 1650 in this particular title, in my opinion, guys. All right, so I'm going to stop it there for 900p. Very small test here, I know. But I'm going to go back to 1080, and I want to check it out with some FSR on quality. Sharpness matters a lot here with FSR in this title, so I'm actually going to bump that up to maximum. It's still soft, even with maximum sharpness. But, you know, it's not too bad looking. Unfortunately, though, it's getting us 40s. So it's kind of the same as without FSR, isn't it? Maybe like 5 FPS higher or so. 46 right here with FSR quality. And now I'm going to disable FSR. This doesn't really do anything, but still, I'm going to set it to native AA there. Okay, no, this area is way more intensive, apparently, guys. Or maybe it's because we've already swapped a ton of things into the RAM and it's now way more intensive. So what I'm going to do is save the game and I'm going to go ahead and restart just to reset the memory usage and we go back to having accurate FPS. And here we go. Okay, so after a restart, we're back to 45 frames per second at 1080p native resolution. and the low settings. So there was definitely a memory leak going on there. So yeah, that's something to keep an eye out for, you know, if your FPS tank down all of a sudden, maybe consider restarting every now and again. Now, FSR set to quality again. And yeah, it's only like 3 FPS higher than 1080p native resolution. Now, it's up to you whether you like this look or the native resolution look better. FSR native AA is an option, but it drops your FPS like crazy. So I prefer to utilize native resolution with SMAA 1X, which is not soft at all. It's actually way sharper than usual, so that's why you get a lot of shimmering on the game, you know, on the picture quality. But if you don't like aliasing whatsoever, FSR quality might actually look better than 1080p native with SMAA 1x. I don't like this as much as SMAA 1x, but I've seen a lot of people that do like this look a lot better. And I see why, honestly. Going inside of the forest in this area, for example, it's not dropping too much. VRAM allocation is actually at 3.3 gigabytes at the moment. Interesting. The usage is at 2.8. But it already swapped a bunch of things into the RAM because that's at 13 gigabytes and it's not that high, I believe, when VRAM isn't an issue. And here we go, we're starting to get some stuttering issues sometimes, or little spikes here and there. Again, not game-breaking whatsoever, they're happening very far between, so it's a pretty good experience in my opinion, guys. And if you have a smaller monitor, 22-inch 1080p for example, this will look pretty good, I think, even with FSR quality, which is not something that I was expecting to say here today, but yeah. It's definitely acceptable, okay? Maybe because I haven't started the video at like 4K resolution or 1440p resolution. This is actually looking kind of decent to me. Oh boy. Oh, Pebbles. You're fine, buddy. You're fine. I think I installed the mod for no fall damage, so that's great. Anyway, that's it. 1080p, quality, FSR. Running absolutely fine on low settings. It also masks the pop-in a little bit, honestly. And yeah, what else is there for us to test? Maybe medium settings? I don't think that's going to be a good experience. I mean, lower resolutions look extremely bad because of the anti-aliasing techniques in this game. And medium is definitely way too much for 1080p and the GTX 1650. As you can see here, 20s very often. Doesn't even reach 30 FPS, so... yeah, it's not going to happen at medium settings. I could try, and I will try restarting to reset the memory allocation, but I don't think it's going to help here on medium settings. All right, here we go. This is with FSR. Didn't I disable FSR? Oh, it is disabled. See this, guys? It's so soft looking, and there's so much ghosting that I actually thought FSR was enabled, but FSR... probably looks better than this. This is having this look because of SMAA T2X or 2TX. It's a terrible AA implementation here. SMAA 1X, super sharp, super shimmery at the same time, but I do prefer it this way, once again. And then you have FSR native AA as well, but that's way more intensive. Once again, and it drops like 5 or 6 FPS. It's like a 10 to 20% drop in performance. Kind of crazy, so... I would not really do that. You'd be below 30 FPS pretty much at all times. Right now, not too bad, 30, 31. So restarting the game did make a little bit of a difference here. But I mean, in some areas, it will inevitably start dropping from 30 FPS and be a kind of terrible experience in my opinion. Yeah, 29 right there. Doesn't drop too much. Maybe with a little bit of an overclock, it would stay at 30 locked all of the time. And with a controller, maybe a little bit of motion blur as well, it would likely be a playable experience. And medium settings fixes a lot of the issues that I had with the image quality at low settings, by the way. It looks way better. The shadows, the render distance, the textures, like everything is way better looking at the moment. But it is a bit too much for a little GTX 1650 to handle, unfortunately. However, for the graphics it's outputting, it's not too bad. Once again, I'm still a little bit impressed to see 32 average after all of this that we've been doing here on medium settings, you know. I can't really seem to drop from 30 FPS too much. Even here, inside of this forest area, 29 right there. So a little overclock would probably do it. And this is still without FSR. If we enable FSR on quality, for example, it goes up into the 40s sometimes, and 30s most of the time. But I guess, yeah, this way it will never drop from 30 FPS. You got a little bit of a different look in terms of anti-aliasing. Again, it's softer this way, but it still doesn't look as bad as it did with SMAA 2TX. Again, I thought medium would just be completely unplayable across the board, even with FSR, since FSR doesn't really improve things by a whole lot. But it is doing a fine job here. It's making it possible for us to have that medium settings look in terms of LOD and textures and everything else. And it's not killing our FPS at the same time. All right, I'm going to stop it there, though, and I kind of want to see it in Troskowitz. Yeah, let's go to Troskowitz. All right, here we have it, a little town area, medium settings, FSR quality. Not a problem, as you can see. It's not as intensive as the forest areas, guys. This part over here actually gets really intensive below this tree, so let's check it out. 36, 37, 39. It's a playable experience. I honestly don't have anything to complain about here with this performance on the GTX 1650. The game is very intensive, as I showed with other GPUs, like a 4070 Ti Super video. It didn't seem like the game was well optimized because I was playing at 1080p experimental settings, I believe, and it dropped from 60. But it's super scalable. That's the thing about this game. You can make it run and look good on a GTX 1650, and you can make a 5090 sweat a little bit at 4K experimental settings, which are the maximum settings. If you go inside of a forest, it actually starts dropping sometimes from 60 FPS. Very slightly, doesn't happen often, but it does happen. But now, guys, I will try it with this Ultra Graphics mod from Nexus Mods. This looks insanely interesting, kind of like RuneScape, old school, you know? And obviously this is absolutely ridiculous, and you don't need to install this mod at all if you have the GTX 1650, unless you have a high refresh rate monitor and you really want to take advantage of it, you know, because now it's noticeably smoother right now at 80-90 frames per second than it was with 40, of course, but it just kills the experience, honestly speaking, in terms of the graphics quality. This was needed with a GT 1030 to achieve 60, not even 60, 30 plus FPS. Yeah, that's it. We got 30 plus FPS with this mod on a GT 1030, and this GPU is apparently like 3 times faster than the GT 1030 in this title using this mod, which is very interesting to take a look at. If you're feeling nostalgic and you... Wait, oh, it actually starts rendering in if we get really super close to him. The draw distance is like 0 at this point. That's why this all looks like molten plastic or mud, basically. It's super weird, I know. But if some people might actually be into it. I saw some comments in the GT 1030 video when I tested this for the first time saying that people, or some people, wouldn't mind playing like this. Honestly, if this was all I had, the story is still the same. The graphics are absolute crap, of course, but you can play the game. And that's the beauty of PC gaming, my friends. The modding community around this game is awesome. I have been installing some mods as well myself, just playing the game. And I've been having a blast as well while doing so. It's awesome, guys. It's awesome. I really like this. This is the Super Jump mod, by the way. And there's the Super Mega Jump, which I don't think I have installed here in this PC, okay? Anyway, I think that's about it. Thanks very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. I'll leave a link to this mod if you want to check it out in the description. And I'll catch you in the next one very soon. As always, love you all. Bye-bye.